Who are
Hi,
you?
I'm Jay.
That is Jay. Jay is are you an instructor, a professor? Both?
So I am a lecturer, which is the department I'm in does not call us professor because of union rules.
But you're really a professor.
I am no officially I'm a lecturer, which is their way of hiding instructor, but
Yeah,
it should be adjunct professor.
I get it.
Except I'm also the lead Um, I'm the senior lecturer or lead lecturer, which means I manage the curriculum development. I deal with all the admin for the other faculty, whom also I'm the person who pushes back when they try and call us. I got to do a little bit of fight with the department because you can call me whatever you want to, but I get really pissed off when they downgrade when they don't give our department sufficient respect for, you don't get to do that to my people. You can do it to me. I don't care.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's an issue. So,
But you're more than
that's why I use lecturer strongly as a term instead of specifying professor or instructor, because we should be instructors. We have three departments, one of which is called professor for the same job, and
I
go
think of
from
you
there.
as all of them because they're all the same thing. So you were a famous Magic the Gathering player early on. And so you were around in the 90s. We've been in the same place at the same time. Then I go to Wizards, then I leave, and then you go to Wizards. And then afterwards, you start a game company, you make a bunch of games, and then you start teaching a game design course at the University of Washington.
It's
And
kind of a combo of that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I actually started the game design company about the same time I inherited the UW game design program. So, um, anyway, that sort of was a weird story and worthwhile. I think you interviewed Brian, didn't you? Tinsman,
Uh,
or is he
oh,
on your
Brian,
list?
he predate. Oh, I talked to him on Friday. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I thought you meant I went back. You were like interviewed, like we're going back 30 years. I'm like
No,
the other
no,
way
no. I
around.
mean
He
on this.
interviewed me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Anyway,
we talked Friday. Yes.
so, when Richard, Scaff, and Robert were teaching the UW's game design course so they could create the book Characteristics of Games.
Hmm.
And um, they wrote the book, and WotC didn't allow them to print it. They said, whatever, we're printing it anyway. Um,
Nice.
and Robert was the only one still employed by them, and he went and did Marvel Diablo.
Yep.
And it has a name, but Marvel Diablo works.
Hmm.
And didn't want to throw the program away, especially Scaff and Robert, in all fairness. Um, and so they reached out to the senior game designer who had just been laid off, and Brian was going to do it, and then he got the job at Zynga in Texas,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
and
I
so
saw him there.
I was their second choice. Uh,
You're
yeah,
both good choices. You're both good choices.
I think we are both good choices. Look,
Yep.
sometimes you get first pick, sometimes you don't. When I
Yeah.
got my job at WotC, the second pick was also an exceptional choice. Um,
Who's the second? No, you don't have to say.
yeah, I don't know that I want to say
I
that.
don't want
I'm
to say
happy to
either. Like,
say so because I don't have the okay, but he's a
I wouldn't
famous
say.
game designer. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah. The people who don't get hired are also wonderful a lot
Well,
of
he
the
got hired
times.
later.
Yeah, that's how it should work.
Right. He got hired a couple of years later.
Yeah. I think, well, all right. So,
Anyway, so I
yeah,
inherited the program from them and have been running it for 15 years now.
that's like one of your legacies now
It
is
is in a
teaching all these
weird
people.
way. I
How
have
many humans have you touched in
over
through
300.
300? That's
I
great.
actually have a lot of data on this because I'm doing research on game design pedagogy right now,
Hmm.
which is academic speak for how do you teach game design? Because
Yeah, yeah.
nobody really looks at that correctly. There's a lot of books on game design, but not so much on how you actually teach the subject. And our results are important because we do teach significantly differently at the UW than other places. And that's kind of because you know, there's different schools of game design that you find, and it's like the old back when architecture had different schools. And the Wizard School of Game Design is pretty unique.
Pretty unique.
Yeah,
I
well,
wonder
we
a
have a
little.
two-stage design process, and nobody else does except people have copied it, but we're the only school that teaches it.
Yeah, there's something about so at Stanford, the MBA program, they had like every famous person teach in their, freshman cohort 10 or
Mhm.
15 years ago, everyone famous today. And I'm kind of curious, like, if the UW program has a similar profile, but for the like tabletop game design side, right? Where it's
So
like,
we're not tabletop game design. Let me be clear what we are.
ooh,
We
good. Okay.
are,
Look at that.
so we are a game design practicum program,
Okay.
which is we have actually 3 courses right now, 3
Mhm.
programs. 2 of them are certificate from the professional and continuing education, which is everything from professional masters to GEDs. We
Mhm.
are so our department feels we're the future of college. I think we're probably our department heads are probably right about that.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, because we really do. We teach very practical things at a at the UW level. Our entrance requirements are extremely high, even though we're open to non-traditional students. I mean,
Okay.
anybody on who listens to this could sign up for the program. Now, we have one online, one in person, and one that's part of main campus in another department, which they couldn't sign up for. That one's reserved for students only. That one's
Mhm.
also has a game studies element as opposed to pure
That makes
game design practicum. So we look at game design as independent of platform. Platform is a characteristic. It doesn't.
ignore ignoring you. Like, who
Mhm.
do you think does it best? Like, who out there do you think, like, would you pull from if you were essentially trying to train as a
What
game
am I
designer?
hiring?
I don't know if it's about hiring, but it's a good question, right?
It depends on the role because if you're asking who would I hire to be a game design producer, the
Mhm.
answer is clearly CMU's ETC.
Yeah, it's a good school.
Oh, they're amazing. They've invited me to guest lecture a couple times, and I've had the full tour.
A
Uh,
nice spot.
it's a. Have you been inside? Have you seen what they have there to offer?
I have been to CMU many times,
Right,
because
but
I used to play Magic with those guys, but I have not been there in 25 years since Wizards.
so the crazy thing is Anthony Daniels, C3PO, asked me to
Mhm.
help grade some of his finals because he had some that were part of a TCG. And this led to me coming out there to guest lecture to the department, specifically on game development issues or
Mhm.
final design. And he had a final design heavy final, which led to me spending 4 hours working with Anthony Daniels grading his finals, which is, the best thing ever. He made me pee.
Oh, that's pretty nice.
And C3PO. I mean, how do you say no to that ask?
It I mean, it depends on how he's like, what voice he's using during this.
Uh,
Um,
his normal voice, but you can feel C3PO.
you're translating. You talk about this a bit where we'll get into it later, I think, but, like, one of the things you focus on a lot is, digital to analog and analog to digital. But I wanna go back because I think CMU, you mentioned if you want a game producer here,
If you want
then
a game
there's
producer, CMU. If you
and if
want
you
a pure designer, NYU.
okay.
As a matter of fact, Watsy's hired a couple of NYU graduates that have gone through Hasbro.
Mhm.
Jose, and I'm trying to remember his last name. Um, he's just fantastic. He was with Watsy, came out here for a few years from Rhode Island. He's back home now and doing some podcasts. He is really someone once described our cadre as the old guard.
Mhm.
He's sort of middle guard.
Okay.
Uh, in that generation with Ben Hayes and people in that sort of group. But Jose was awesome, and he's an example of an NYU student that I'll happily hold up. Their faculty is really pretty good. Um, there's a school that I'm trying to remember the name of in Germany that's done a little bit of good work for peer designers.
Okay.
If you want game studies, that's a different question. And if you want someone who is basically high-end programmers, that's a different answer.
It's usually Georgia Tech or, I mean, that's
Actually,
where
I'd
I
say
would think.
Santa Cruz.
Santa Cruz? Okay. I've
Santa
worked with people
Cruz,
from both.
UCLA are both very strong in tech. And if you want game studies, that gets really interesting. It
Hmm.
generally depends on the field. Like I was, so I've been doing, as part of game design pedagogy research, a review of, I hate to say every paper in the field because that is way too many, but I've read about 100 over the last 6 months
Hmm.
and had, meetings to discuss each and every one of them. And Rochester's also really pretty good for game design.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I'm trying to figure out like how your program fits. Like if you were to hire people from Washington, what would you what would you
so
look
if
for?
you
Right.
want
What's
a pure game designer, I would say that we may be the best. It's
okay.
arrogant to say that we're the best because we're a 1 year program and the others are 4 years,
Yeah.
but our students come in with 2 years of school
Hmm.
or professional industry experience. Um, Our faculty is so if I told you I'm the junior faculty in experience in our program, I think that would say something. So
Hmm.
the person who teaches the online version of I teach course one right now, which
Hmm.
is pure game design. Um, so I'm followed by Glenn Charles Jones, as it is Glenn,
Hmm.
who is lead on Marvel Snap.
Cool.
Worked at WotC for an incredible number of years. Um, and he teaches final design or development in WotC parlance.
Yep.
And that's followed by Julia Graves. She just won a DICE award for VR Game of the Year Batman Arkham Asylum. Arkham
Yeah.
Shadow.
Okay.
Arkham Shadow. Um, so I'm clearly the junior of those people. I have no DICE awards. I am not the lead on, my company. I don't have a game as big as Marvel Snap.
You worked on Duels of the Planeswalker.
I and I was lead on that for
That was
the
a good
release.
title. That was a
A
good title.
We were in the Hall of Fame inside of a week of release. We were
Ah.
number one on XBLA for effectively the entire time I was there.
Hmm.
Um, it had it depend counting users in duels is an interesting thing because duels wasn't about selling duels. Duels was about reacquisition
Hmm.
and new acquisition, but reacquisition even more strongly. And duels had about 10 million users total across platforms and whatnot.
That was a cool
And
product.
it's amazing. I mean, I think it was an amazing product.
Hmm.
So I wasn't sad as to where it went to. Um, I'm sad that it went away. Duels was a single player Magic experience primarily, but interestingly enough, I was also forcing WotC to become a multiplayer game. Duels always had multiplayer.
Hmm.
One of my core design pillars when I created it was supporting Mary.
Hmm.
So you're familiar with Rosewater's psychographics.
Yeah, for sure.
They're a subset of Bartles. Bartles' taxonomy of psychographics goes back to Muds, and he introduced them in a paper called A Suite of Mutters. And instead of using Johnny, Timmy, Spike, he used suits of cards, spades, diamonds, hearts, and clubs.
I like this.
It's not as good as the descriptive terms at Rosewater, not even close, which is part of why Rosewater's took off more than this well known in academia paper. But here's the
Hmm.
thing Rosewater only had three.
That's
He
true.
left off Hearts, which I dubbed Mary.
Okay.
Uh, And this was really important. And I talked to Rosewater a lot about this when I was working at Duels. You probably remember he loves Roundtable. Um,
I think of him like if you were like, what are the top 3 things you think of Mark? It's like Thursdays at Roundtable or a
mm,
specific day. He reads comics and doesn't go to lunch with everyone, which is totally great. And also, it's pretty funny because everyone goes to lunch together all the time.
I
Yeah.
absolutely. I went to lunch for probably a year straight with Eric every day.
Mhm,
Um, and anyway, but lacking this psychographic, I felt in some ways really hurt Magic. And
mhm.
all in 2006, I felt it was pretty clear. Rosewater didn't agree with me, and but that didn't stop me because I was in this weird case where I mostly reported to myself.
Okay.
Uh, you know, Worth was had business control over me. And then that bounced into after Duels was a success, a bunch of people suddenly were very interested. But I mean, at R&D when I came in, they gave it to me because it was a throwaway. I mean, it had Frank and it had, as the boss on it, and I had
Mhm.
but he got laid off a
Frank
couple of
Gilson's,
months
yeah.
in. Yeah, Frank Gilson. He
Mhm,
got laid off a couple of months in, along with that was the big purge where 70 people got fired. I was too
mhm.
cheap to get away because I was on my initial, I took a 90% pay cut to go work at Watson.
Jesus.
Uh, well, remember, I was in tech before that,
Yeah, so the
and
needs are different.
as it well, I didn't mind coming in under an intern contract because I was the dumbest person in the room. I mean, it's a fair
Yeah.
assessment. In game design, when you come into a place like Wizards, you know, you are the dumbest person in the room, and that's okay.
Mhm.
Um, I spent my first 6 months basically learning. But one of the point of conflicts that I had was that look, you're not looking at all four of the psychographics. And what does it mean when you don't have, the social gamer as part of your audience? And it means that you're not. I mean, they do now very clearly. I mean,
Oh,
look,
for sure.
you
Two-headed
know,
giant,
yeah, look. Well,
commander,
Commander,
DB2.
Commander dominates. Commander
Mhm.
might be bigger than Type Two now.
I think
Um,
for sure it is.
I've heard
Uh,
that, but I don't know for certain, but I just the point is, so when I launched Duels, I refused to let it go out without a new multiplayer format in every version and expansion. I had
wow.
Two-Headed Giant out day 1, and Two-Headed Giant on the Xbox rocked. I mean, it really did. And
That's
then
cool.
we had Plane Chase and we had, um, Duel of the Dragon one. Um, the one where
Okay.
yes, the multiplayer format where there's a boss, um,
Uh,
where 4 players play against 1 player with a special dragon deck, and the 4 players play their decks against them,
that's cool.
and you can build your own, and anyway, we duplicated that a little differently, but,
Mhm.
the decks you could bring in any of the decks in the format and play against 1 player playing a boss deck, or an
Yeah,
AI playing a boss deck.
makes total sense.
And the multiplayer I felt was a big deal, and anyway, it went well, and I've ranted on that enough.
Yeah, but you're still, like, the least senior person in your department. No, I'm just like it's pretty funny.
Well, on that note, Mike Merles teaches the other, design course. You can't say
That's
that I'm
handy.
more senior than Mike.
Yeah, you should tell me about this Merles. I see him on Thursday.
Yes, this
And I don't know
Merles
Mike
guy.
Merles.
Really?
No. So
Oh,
Mike Merles is, someone I recognize the name, and I know he was on the floor when I was there at Early Wizards, and I know he was working on RPG stuff, but part of the fun of talking to Mike Merles is the fact that, like, there was a wall between both sides, and so I, like, quite enjoy talking to the role-playing side, and we didn't cross streams very much back in the day, right? You had very few people, like, Tweet was kind of, like, straddle both sides, um, but it's cool. I Tell me more about this Mike
Okay,
Merrill
so
story.
let's talk about this Mike Merles. So let me
Yeah,
ask you a
go for it.
question.
Professor or instructor,
So let
adjunct.
me let me ask you a
Yes,
question.
shoot.
If you were to say who are the best 3 designers to have graduated from, Wizards R&D? So, no one who's still stuck in school.
Yeah, I
What do
mean,
you come
it's a
up with?
funny one. I don't know that I could answer. I would put Devin up there for doing the legendary stuff,
Absolutely.
for going to
Well, for
Riot.
breadth, I mean, you can name
Yeah,
everything Devin has done, and it's pretty amazing. Plants vs.
it
Zombie,
was a good game.
you know, the he did, Legendary, as you mentioned, and the work at Riot.
Yeah, a lot of people have done pretty well. He's the first one who occurs to me. I don't know that anyone who is after 2000, like 2006, I probably don't know very well, right?
Matt
Unless
Place is another one you could put in.
Matt certainly like is a very interesting one. I guess Donet has done really well too. Tyler's done really well. Tyler Beelman runs the Hearthstone ship going on the game
Well, but
director. So
I'm looking at it as a designer.
I would say he was the designer, right? Like he was a creative director on Gears of War. You don't give him the credit. I'm gonna
I
give him the
no, no,
credit.
no, I know, I would give him the credit, I'm just thinking about the diversity of titles. I'm looking at
Sure.
them, it's not dissing his accomplishments, which are
Pretty
significant.
good one.
No,
Yeah.
they are. They really are, but Matt, if you look at it, he's got a perfect batting average.
Yeah, I guess if you're talking about, it depends on what sphere you're talking about. There are people who've had like incredible runs in like digital that
Mhm.
like you wouldn't think like to count here. But either way, like I do think the cohort has done like phenomenally well across people we played with and worked with, right?
I think Mike
Um,
is in my top 3, which is why I brought this up.
oh, Donut.
No, Merles.
Oh, Merles, sure. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
We'll
his
go on.
his understanding of game design, um, at a fundamental level. Part of why I went into academia was to make myself a better game designer. He didn't need to. He
Mhm.
literally could write the book, and hopefully he will. Uh, I have a lecture of his that I use in my class, just a recorded lecture. And this is basically, it's not just an overview of the history of RPGs, but it's how generationally RPGs have evolved over time and how the audience has evolved and how the mechanics have evolved to reflect his message. And it is so amazing.
Yeah, you're
Uh,
basically like giving me my questions. Keep
it
my
is. So,
yeah. No, no, this is actually really good
uh,
because I think we'll be like kind of feeling each other out and meeting each other at the first time. But like,
he is mechanically as strong as Matt Place, and that's Matt's strength.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And yet, creatively and in the sense of, creating an intriguing and comprehensive world, he's up there with Rob Heinze.
Cool.
Uh, so if you combine those 2, I think you get Mike Merles.
All right. I will assess him for you. I will like make it as uncomfortable. I will treat him like he's at Oxford or Cambridge, whatever applies here, and I will
Don't do
make
that.
him
We
do
have
his.
terrible game design programs. Abernathy in Scotland would be a better call.
The odds that I would be able to like do that with a straight face for 2 hours.
I understand.
Yeah, no, that's really. I mean, I see him as like this TTRPG guy, and I remember him from like WotC time, and so it's gonna be
You
fun.
know
I
what his job
yep.
is right now, don't you?
No, I don't. I think he mentioned he was working on D&D, but I don't know any of the
He's the
specifics.
creative director for Asmodee. If you
Okay.
know, Asmodee is about twice the size of Hasbro and is the largest tabletop game company in the world by a mile.
This is all helpful context.
Um, well, Hasbro's $10 billion market cap. Asmodee, last time I checked, is 25.
That's pretty cool.
And he's their creative director.
Then I think we're gonna have a good time.
I think
That's
he will too. And the thing is, he's a great choice for the job.
yeah,
And
I
yeah,
believe
that
you.
should say enough. That's not RP. They don't do RPGs. They might, but that's not their focus.
Okay. I feel like that we're going to learn a lot both ways. It's really, my background's pretty divergent from everyone else
Hmm.
that we worked with. So it's like, all right, what are the degrees of separation? What islands do we share in like the inside out parlance that like overlap and like what can we learn from each other? I think that's been a really fun aspect of these calls. It's, everyone else has had their own journey and you can come back and converge to learn from each other. I think it's really cool that you've done all that you've done. Yeah.
Well, you brought up transliteration,
Hmm.
and I should jump back to that. And
Yeah. Shoot.
transliteration is basically, as you said, going between formats. Because
Hmm.
I also go between live action at times as well. I set up one of the largest LARPs in the country that lasted for about 30 years, and the descendants basically are all the Southeastern LARPs. My LARP had about 3,000 attendees per season when I
Jeez,
was running it.
that's awesome.
Our events were about 350 people ballpark with about 70 people and staff.
Are you still LARPing?
No, I retired from LARPing after I got married and moved out here because I wasn't going to put the effort into creating. I had a high standard for LARPs. Um,
So interested in this?
and
Go on. Like, I wanna know how the history of LARPing has changed to the degree that you know, and, like, what your standards were at the end, because it's
so
just, like,
my
pretty
so
cool.
my LARP ended in flame, fire, and terribleness. Enough so that LARP Academia did a video about my
The
LARP,
horror story.
about how
Yeah.
it was called something akin to that. The horror that was Solar, or how Solar burned in flames or something.
Did not
Um,
know this.
I actually
Okay.
come off as naive but good-hearted.
It's
And
better than, like, completely knowing and villainous.
it does. Um, and I can't argue with naive. This is the first major game design I did. I was 20 years old. Um, I had, you know, 20 years old. We're talking 19, I was eight, so I guess I was 22, 1989, 88.
Yeah.
All I had to go from was Nero up in Boston, a New England role playing organization. And we were nominally a subchapter of them. We were originally Nero Southeast, and I learned that LARPs have a community limit of about 250 to 350 people before they split, like an amoeba.
Mhm.
And my LARP split after about 2 years. And, over the it's 1992, 91. By 98, there were 16 different subsets, which was, um, here's a very bizarre story. So I run 13th Age RPG right now.
Mhm.
I'm, the executive producer of it.
Mhm.
One of my great grandkid LARPs uses my 13th Age currency for their LARP. So I have the top selling currency from campaign coins these days. I'm outselling D&D and Pathfinder from the one of the, if not the largest coin manufacturers, because they decide to use my coins. They are rather cool and good for LARPing.
Mhm.
They stack like poker chips, but
That's
better.
very cool.
They three different sizes. They stack like a pyramid.
I'm
So
shuffling cards, and I feel like I should be shuffling your coins. It's actually quite intriguing for someone who shuffles as much as I do.
I'll grab a stack. So, can you see this? This is what a
I
sealed
can see
bag.
these, yeah, they're
Okay, you
beautiful.
see how
Yeah.
they have holes inside, so they wear
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
Those are all the same size. Okay, here's another size. There are three sizes, so they not only stack within themselves like a poker chip,
Yeah.
they stack going into a pyramid. So they stack better, they're pretty, they have holes in them, and there's a LARP in Florida that buys thousands of them.
I mean, they look really cool. That's awesome, and they're functionally
They're
quite
incredibly
useful.
functional for a LARP because you can wear them around on a string.
I love your history and your, like, exploration, like, so one time after Cityville, my Cityville run, I decided to travel around the world, and for whatever reason, like, Jay and I you and I get together, and you're like, "You need to run in this group called
Oh, are you
Hash
talking
House
about
Heritage."
hashing?
Yeah, and I'm like,
Oh,
"What
yeah.
what are you talking about?" And he's like, "There's a society of people who just drink and run, and they drink to run, and they run to drink." I don't know, you know what I mean?
I know,
Like,
no, you're spot on pretty much. So, did you get a chance to run with them?
no, but I did get to like, everywhere I went, I looked it up and, like, had that intention, and
So
that's as far as I got.
so hashing has just undergone its second major environmental rules change recently. So hashing, so let me give a history and background of hashing so people understand what this is for a moment. So back in the early 1920s and 30s, the British Army was everywhere. Specifically of relevance was Indonesia, and there were British, lieutenants, lower level officers, low enough level they had to still get exercise, but high enough level that they would have manservants, and they wanted to go hunting like they would have back home, but you can't. So they would drive off in their limos and they would, a pack of them. And some of their manservants would set up a party back at the base. The other one would go out and lay a trail that everyone went and ran to follow. And they were basically playing the game Hounds and Hares live action, simulating what was normally hunting. And then they'd come back and then they'd have a party. Um, This spread everywhere. That's why it's in every city, every country in huge numbers, and it still maintains the IP of hounds and hares. And if you're part of the pack, think kind of the great hunt because you blow horns and whistles and kazoos and everything else. And you're trying to chase down the hare. Usually it's not actually a live hare. Usually the trail has been laid a couple hours in advance. But they one of the most common things is there's a messaging system because it's a brilliant game from live action because the fast people go out and explore to try and find the next trail marker, and that gives the slower people time to catch up because it's not a race. Hash If you call it a race, you're a racist, and you wind up with a hash penalty. And whenever you see a trail marker, you blow a whistle. If you see a checkpoint, you blow three zeros. Now, picture this. Most cities have a couple hundred people in their major hash that do this every weekend. Now, picture blowing whistles today in Minneapolis. Minneapolis has a hash. What does it mean when you blow a whistle or three whistles and then hundreds of people are blowing whistles? It's a signal that ice is out there. And so the hash is having to adapt right now. So it's
Interesting.
actually in the news. And from a game studies perspective, it's really interesting. The same thing happened so the trail is marked in white flour traditionally because it's cheap. You can throw it on the ground, it biodegrades. And that goes back at least 100 years, or not 100 years, but maybe 100 years now, at
Mhm.
least 75 years.
Yeah, it's
Um,
I would like if I had to bet a dollar, I would bet 100 years, but I don't know for sure. I have
but
no
anyway,
reason
it's a
to. Yeah, yeah.
traditional trail marker for hashes. And, if there's a checkpoint, there's an X drawn in flour. And anyway, that didn't work when the anthrax scare came out because,
Yeah, flower is scary.
yeah, I mean, and anyway, the point is, it is all about everyone getting to the party to drink. And, good, well designed hashes sometimes even have a beer stop in the middle if it's a long run.
It's the rock and roll marathon of so
It is. I mean, it supports dogs. It's very cross country. It's very trespassy. It is, I mean, I've run under every sewer. It's very much super icky cross country, if that makes sense.
You
I've
get to
run
see the
in
world.
You do. I've run under every tower in Atlanta, sewer tunnel in Atlanta under the interstates, and through. I've crossed a river before. Some hashes will just here's some inner tubes. You can see the next trail on the other side of the Chattahoochee. You have at it. Um, anyway, that's hashing, and
That, yeah.
I've taken a couple of road trips around the country. I think when I was mentioning to you, kind of at the major decision points in my life, I take 3 to 6 months and basically become a hobo. I'll live out of my car, youth hostels, um, flea bag motels when I'm feeling high end. And, I'll travel to every city and spend a couple of weeks. It sort of started because early on, I was in the Army and I was in an MI unit. And I had a top secret clearance, not because I knew anything. I knew absolutely nothing. Excuse me. But people with my same job did know something. As it was, I was a reservist, and they're not going to let me, you know. I wasn't allowed to leave the country. So when
Wow.
I vacationed, I had to stay in the US or Canada, which, even though it technically isn't part of the country, they were willing to let me go to Canada with
We
no
were friends
real
back then.
issues. Yeah, we were friends back then. And so I one of those trips I hashed in probably 40 or 50 cities.
Nice.
Well, it gave me a community. I performed Rocky Horror in each city and I hashed in each city, and I had a social life everywhere I went to.
Yeah, I really
And
love that. Like when I was thinking of earlier, there's a question I'm going to want to ask you, but like when I talk to you, I feel community. Like I feel like you're a community oriented person, like someone who builds communities. So when you talk about the LARP, you're essentially building it and running it, and then there's other times where you join. But it just feels like when I think Jay Schneider, I think
I'm a Mary
there's a
psychographic.
yeah, the heart psychographic.
Yeah, I'm the Mary psychographic.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Most
I
teachers
might
are.
be too. I might be too, actually.
If you
I
wind up
struggle.
building community, it
Yeah.
doesn't people get confused and wanna throw us in as either Spike or Johnny, but we don't I mean, we play competitively because that's what build the community we're in. Um, we design to build community, not the other way around.
Yeah, when I talked to Brian David Marshall, like in the book, I thank him. And then one of the reasons I wrote the book is because one of the folks in College Park who ran the store there, Byron Amin, he
Mhm.
passed away, right? And it was just like, oh, the people who created these communities and suffered, through all the ordeals that come with doing that were the people that were the real heroes over the last 30 plus years. And so yeah, over time, ideally, more and more people graduate to realizing that and appreciating the Mister Rogers style help the helper. Anyway,
Well,
I can feel it in all of your stories, so I'm a mirror reflecting
I
it back
I
to you.
appreciate the mirroring. It's, I Yeah, I love playtesting competitively and hard, but, it was so I could hang out with folks like Andy Wolf and
Yeah,
Andy
yeah.
or Paul.
Mhm.
My original someone mentioned, the slide deck, I think Albert in the comments or
Yeah,
the
I was
side.
this is where I want you to go, but there are 2 questions. So I think you should finish your story. I am curious how you found magic or how it found you. And I'm also curious if, like, the slide deck is like, are you flock of seagulls about it? And you're like, "No, I'm not gonna play that or talk about that." Or if it's like your one hit wonder or one of many hit wonders. Is it the deck you
Wow,
should be
one hit
remembered for?
wonder.
I'm
It's
just I
okay.
but
I
it was so, like, famous. It's like,
It was my 15
what's
minutes of fame, or is,
15
or
minutes? It's like Mbop or, like, Barbie Girl. It's, like, extremely high. You retired off of that deck alone, but I'm sure you did more. And so it's
Like to
like,
think I mean, duels was far more impactful for Magic,
sure.
by far. I mean, duels so we were doing I like to think we did duels very professionally.
Mhm.
Probably because I did a lot of it, but I mean, that's not the reason, but that's why I
Yeah,
think it's the
yeah.
case. I'm not trying to say that I mean, and let me bring a quick comment on duels. Um, Worth, Matt Place, Mike McCallion, Adam Dixon, who you don't know but should.
Mhm.
Um, he was in Brand. Um,
Very cool.
the I mean, literally all of R&D helped at amazing levels, and you know, um, Bill Stark. Bill Stark got hired at Watt City because I hired him. Because I needed someone. I had gotten in a position where I could no longer develop the decks, and I needed someone who I knew was good and would go off and do great things. And of course, Bill
Mhm.
was an easy choice. Not to mention, he was a fan of my green white deck from back in the day. I did a Tog deck, Aratog, and it was green white
Oh, cool.
fluctuator back in fluctuator days.
See, I don't know this stuff, but you were talking about Paul
So Paul,
Sly
yeah,
and
so
Andy
Paul
Wolf.
was
Yeah.
okay. So let's go back to my LARP. So
Mhm.
um, I had gotten out of the army. I had no clue what I was going to really do with my life. I had just finished my training. I was a reservist. I didn't need to get back anytime soon. Um, so I took a road trip. And during this road trip, I wound up in Boston with someone who's basically a foster brother of mine.
Mhm.
And he was at MIT at the Media Lab, but more relevantly, relevant to the story, he was, LARPing. And he's like, "Do you want to go on this LARP?" And I'm like, "Sure, I'm, up here." And so I went out LARPing with a party that was mostly the TEP fraternity there, and um, really liked it. Started coming back every month. I was just flying back and forth from Atlanta.
Mhm.
Realized this was after about a year. This was kind of silly. I should just see about setting up a chapter.
Mhm.
Uh, I thought it might, not as much because I thought it would be easier, but I wanted to LARP with my local friends, like the Slaws. So Paul and Bill and myself had been playing Starfleet battles and RPGs since they were in high school, and I coached their chess team. Early on, I was a very professional chess player.
Okay.
Did I not mention this to you at some point?
No, man, this is all good. I
No,
like
heck. Okay.
I'm
So
like, at some point, I'm gonna ask you your bucket list, and that will follow from all of the cool shit you've already done, but, like, continue.
okay, so I have to sidetrack. Sorry.
No, no,
Um,
it's okay. Like,
um,
you're so interesting. I love it.
well,
And it yeah, no, it's good. I love
um,
how, like, interesting everyone is in all of these calls.
yeah,
It's a
everyone
recurring
is
theme. Yeah.
interesting, and you're talking to the right people, to the right group of people.
Right.
Um, so did you ever see Searching for Bobby Fischer?
Oh, I've seen it many times. Don't move until
Okay.
you see it, Chad.
Do you know that that story was repeated every 2 years starting in 1975 all the way through at least the late '80s, if not '90s?
No?
So the reason that story existed is an organization called the American Chess Foundation.
Mhm.
The American Chess Foundation, after Bobby Fischer went off the deep end, to put it mildly,
Mhm.
looked around and realized there were no great chess stars. We need to basically build the next generation of chess people. And so they funded coaches, travel, basically a professional athlete style lifestyle for chess students, or for chess students who met their criteria. And their criteria was age times your ELO rating. Basically, you had to have an ELO rating higher than your age times 100 plus 700. So you had to be above 1500 when you were 8. The
Mhm.
goal behind this was to make the next youngest master. Fisher did it when he was early 14, and they were looking for 13 and before.
Hmm.
Um, so, for the record, I am the absolute worst chess player of the entire experiment at the end of the day. All of my peers are grandmasters. I am not. I
Okay.
am at best, I'm probably now a weak master, but
Sure. Still
but
good.
that's only due to rating inflation. Now, here's the thing: I was stronger than I am now when I was 12. So I failed meeting my goal of beating 13, or the goal that was set for me. I wound
Hmm.
up at 2179 as my high water mark.
Still good. It's still good. Yeah.
You know the difference between 2179 and 2200? When one of them, it's the difference between winning and losing a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I grew up as a chess kid. I would go to chess tournaments with my dad, who was in the 2,300 range when I was growing up. And so I've seen him fluctuate up and down based on his tournament experiences, and knew all these wildcats, really strange people that talked in funny languages. Like the language of chess, like there's this weird riffing that goes back and forth. Like, um, anyway, yeah, no, you're still pretty good. Like if you're at the like chess club, you're a pain in the ass to play.
Sure, but the point was that starting at age 8, I had professional chess tutors.
Hmm.
The Peruvian national champion was brought in when I was 9 to coach me for a couple hours. I had lessons 2 to 3 hours a day most weekdays.
Who did this to you? Like, where are your parents and all this?
That's an interesting story. My dad was my chess coach, and he's the one who built
Okay.
me into the person I am mostly.
Oops.
He, you know, my parents were divorced from
Mhm.
5, and this was a lot of things. I mean, it's weird. I feel like I was constructed to be who I am.
You're Al
Um,
Gore, but for games.
I don't know what Al Gore's childhood was like.
Oh, he was, like, primed to be president from day one. Like, "You will be trying to be president." Like, that was his trajectory from the beginning. Can we manufacture? Obviously, he didn't become president, but
Right.
that
But
that was yeah.
there are certain things that require you to be a gold medalist,
Mhm.
and the distinction between a gold and a silver or bronze medalist is significant. Anyway, when I was 10, Boris Kogan, they brought me a Russian grandmaster from the Russian school, moved him to Atlanta, like they'd
Mhm.
moved Yermo to Atlanta to be my coach for a few years. Basically, you have a special talent, you can coach chess. Come here, we'll put you up in a place and get you immigration status, and your job is to coach this kid. And at 13, for a lot of reasons, I retired. Uh, I could have continued on. My rating was still sufficient to stay at the level.
Mhm.
My parents basically gave me a choice, and that was both of them. And honestly, I looked at the chess grandmasters at the time and didn't want to be any of them.
Yeah, for
So
sure, that was a weird set of people.
it was. I mean, it was a great experience. I mean, at that point in time, I switched over to playing other games, one of which was Starfleet Battles and
Okay.
Diplomacy. Um, Although I started playing Diplomacy, I guess also when I was 8. I had, so I was in college while I was in elementary and high school because they didn't have the programs that let you jump out.
Mhm.
So when I was 8, I was playing at Georgia State University team, Diplomacy at the computer center.
That's cool.
Yeah, well, it was really well set up for it because you had to run batch jobs back then. This was before computer, it was all networked. We were using old 9080s. Well, old back,
Mhm.
not old back then, but we'd run a job and then you'd have to wait 20 minutes for it to process, and you'd get the output in this one place. And while you waited, there was this room, and I hung out with the gamers. Um, Anyway, all of this running forward, Starfleet Battles, um, Atlanta, courtesy of Dragon Con, which was
Mhm.
originally a gamer convention called Dagger.
Okay.
Had very strong board game roots. There were even $1,000 tournaments at Dragon Con for a while, one of which was Starfleet Battles. Paul Sly and myself took it 3 or 4 years. We would
Wow.
we would both make in the finals and split.
That's cool.
Magic came along, introduced to me by some of my LARP friends up in Boston.
Yeah.
And, I had been at that point in time, I had been retiring from LARPing anyway, so this made a lot of sense. Paul was interested. We both played, set a $22 limit for maximum spend. We allowed you to use things you got from prize winnings. Uh, they, s- the Dragon Con people started having high value tournaments because the slide deck goes back way before other people realize.
Hmm.
Um, Paul was playing a mono blue control deck at the time. Yeah, it was a card advantage deck. It wasn't as good as the deck because it didn't have white. It used Triskelion and Mana Drain, which was it
Oh,
was
good.
good enough. Let's just put it that way. And it kept the slide deck having a very sharp edge because if I didn't, I would just be demolished. I mean, turn three Triskelion, especially back then, you could deal damage, put damage on the stack, throw arms.
Hmm.
Uh, just
Pretty good.
terrifying. Yeah, you didn't exactly
I
need
forgot
that.
that's a type. That was a type one card back then. It was.
That no,
That's
it
it.
was a tournament card back then. There weren't
Yeah.
types. This was
Oh, sure,
before
sure.
that. It was just you had tournament rules and non-tournament rules. I actually
Sure.
played the slide deck before tournament rules. I mean, I it did remarkably well against some of the. I couldn't, of course, beat the auto kill you lightning bolt deck.
Hmm.
But crappy ones like the chains decks, and that had 8 chains, 8 lotuses, 8 twisters. I could beat those
Okay.
because I could dump my hand as quickly as they could fill it.
That sounds pretty fun.
Anyway, so that's how I came to be involved, playing testing with Paul and his brother
Yeah.
Bill. And
You're making me wonder. So my friends who LARPed also got me into Magic. I wasn't a big LARPer. I went once and like I swung too hard and did felt bad. Like I didn't hurt the person permanently, but I was like, oh, I don't like to fight. And so that was it. But I wonder now if there was like the Zoolander scene where there's a male model who like kills Lincoln. Was there like some plant that went around the LARPing communities and like you
no,
look,
but there
you
was
know
an
what I mean?
affordance. I mean, there was a time when, the LARP organizations were worried about, in the same way that other TCGs were worried, about Magic,
Mhm.
killing D&D or, when World of Warcraft. Is it going to kill Magic? These were all major, parasitic, from other
Oh,
games.
for
And
sure, for sure.
so
There.
certainly LARPs, lost audience to Magic. We had to put in rules prohibiting people from playing TCGs at events.
And that is where it all went. Freak.
No,
No,
no, that wasn't crazy. It was a good
yeah,
choice.
no, no. I just mean that's where the rebellion happened.
Mm.
People wanted to play Magic so bad that no, not.
No, it was. I mean, remember I mentioned quality in LARPs.
Hmm.
So I don't know if you've ever looked at some of the very high-end European LARPs, the concierge
Mm-mm.
LARPs. So the one that was
Wow.
the most awesome closed down a couple of years ago, the Witcher LARP. It
Okay.
takes place in a castle in Poland.
Cool.
They do things that are too dangerous for the US, and they have way more staff than you could afford in the US. I mean, it
Okay.
costs you basically go to Witcher school for a few days, and they have fire arrows you're shooting and night combats on boats and things high levels of special effects. Imagine what you can do when your audience is paying $1,000 or $2,000 US a head in Poland.
Mhm. Yeah.
And, you've got, they have a high ratio, but think cruise ship model. And
That's
and
super cool.
castles are a dime a dozen. And you look at those. So the costuming is brilliant. They have, serious professional sword instructors out there. Yeah, you're using, you know, if you're a contact LARP, you either pad the player or you pad the weapon.
Mhm.
And, you can argue for either one. Padded weapons have gotten beautiful these days to the point of visually indistinct. And of course, the SCA has had a long run with padding the player. And yeah, I do consider them a LARP, even if they don't.
Okay. So Magic to you, like, you and Paul Sly become famous pretty early.
Mhm.
Like, what was your best deck in your heart? You know what I
Oh,
mean?
the slide deck was the best
The
deck.
slide
I
deck.
mean,
Okay.
well, when we saw Magic, I'm like, oh, I want to make the best deck. Not the best deck of the time, just the best deck.
Mhm.
I think I'm the only person who can actually hold to claiming to have done that.
Okay.
It's like it's got more look, and that was in part because it was a concept. Remember, the slide deck was the concept of the mana curve as an optimal method of resource utilization.
Mhm.
When I first made the slide deck, I got a little bit lucky. The concept was good, and I happened to have a lot of excess red cards. Remember, $22 in my whole collection and
Mhm.
crappy red cards. My first slide deck, I didn't have a full set of, well, the Minotaur. I had to use gray ogres because I didn't have enough 2/3s in a mono red deck. I didn't have enough lightning bolts. I think I borrowed one or two from Andy early on, who was
Mhm.
also in my LARP, by the way, along with his brother,
That's pretty funny.
Stuart. And so I knew them from there, and started play testing with him as well. As the slide deck did well, it won a lot of money, and suddenly I could afford cards, and it goes from there.
What's your favorite epoch of Magic? In 30 plus years, like, if you could go back to any time, play with those cards, what would it be?
Oh wow. So I loved Alice, strangely enough.
It was
Ice
really
Age
good.
Alliance.
It was
I mean,
very
I
yeah.
loved that block, and I played a deck that was different than everyone else's. Um, and by the way, this is something I guess should probably be brought up. In some ways, I'm the worst Magic player you know. I'll certainly be the worst you'll interview, and I say that because I tactically am terrible. I was trained to be a chess player in 40 and 2 time control. So
Okay.
what I was trained to do was to know when to go in and sit and analyze a position for 2 hours, or at least a better part of it.
The long Magic tournament.
But time control used to be 40 moves in 2, and
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
weren't using all your time, you were making a mistake. And if you wanted to be a great chess player, you needed to know how to use all your time.
Sure, makes
And
sense.
this turned me into a strategist instead of a tactician, which means that I mean, I make I make terrible moves on the table, but I see them all. That's why if your metric is the most errors you make that you see, I'm the worst Magic player.
Have you played Magic recently? I played Two-Headed Giant last week with some dads from school, and, like, I still, like, felt powerful, but there were so many more decisions available on the cards than there used to be. It was like, you would to see all of the options felt like it felt like if you gave me a quiz to see everything, like, it
This
would
is
be hard
why I
to
like
see.
block better than any
Oh,
other
yeah.
format. Remember, yes, what I like best? It was a
Yeah.
question of which block constructed
Just
I like.
block, period. Any block.
Any block
I
constructed.
Sage Alliances is underrated, like, it was a really fun format that, like, had a lot of variety in what was good or not, and it wasn't, like, overpowered by and
Yeah,
large,
I
so
mean, I
I
think
also liked that a
Fury
lot.
was red green was best, and
So Stormbind and all
I
that
played a
stuff.
Pox Stance of the Dead deck with
Mhm.
Krovikan horrors in it, and mostly getting your
Oh, yeah.
stuff back. Because damn,
Blue Red Browse was good. All kinds of things were good in
there
that
were
window.
amazing things. I loved that format.
Underrated.
Mhm,
Yeah. Hmm. Okay.
so, um,
What's on your bucket list at this point? I feel like you've done so much, like, what's the next Jay Schneider accomplishment going to be that you can talk about? It's not
So, do you wanna
Proprietary.
know what the next thing is gonna be? I'm hoping. So, it's the
Hmm.
research.
Okay.
I hope I will be publishing a fair number of papers. Um, I'm in an unusual group. First of all,
Okay.
I'm not supposed to be publishing. It is weird for, professional education
The
faculty.
opposite of how that works. Yeah.
But as it is, one of the interesting things is I believe the UW program is better than other ones because we are professional education. Every other department, their
Sure.
biggest flaw is where they came from. So the weakness you see when you look at how the other schools, and by the way, our results, our first year students are director levels in most major companies.
Mhm.
Um, I have no need to go outside of my alumni now for guests from my class.
Yeah, for sure.
But um, if you so every game design program, not every, it's probably not everyone, but really most of your game design programs started in between 2004 and 2008, 10 maybe.
Hmm.
And what you had was a couple of bright people who decided they want to write a textbook about how whatever subject they were in works with games. So if you were a bunch of bright narrative people, they're talking about the narrative elements. They create a program that teaches game design from a narrative perspective. If they're graphics and computer scientists, they're talking
Hmm.
about how computer graphics impact game design. If they are information sciences, they talk about game studies. Same thing for theater studies. You get that as well.
Hmm.
If you have professional education, you don't have that. And that's one of the planks of, and several papers have noted that one of the biggest problems in teaching game designers is the students don't respect you because they feel they have more domain expertise than their instructors. That doesn't happen in our program.
Hmm.
You know, we come in and it's like, I teach my faculty to do a presence attack, per term from Paranoia RPG, at the start. Don't hold back. Show what you're known for, and the fact every one of our faculty has a game that sold 10 million or more.
Cool.
Uh, and and the reason is that way you can say something with a voice of authority and not have to fight every little detail, which just drags classes down. I mean, questions are critical. We use the Socratic method,
Hmm.
but you have to be able to end the discussion too, or else classes go forever, especially when you have a bunch of bright people. And the voice of authority gives that to you. Anyway, so game design research, how to teach game design, why you should use the two-stage game design process.
Hmm.
So one of the unique things is only Rochester really legitimately taught final design, and now that Ian Schreiber left, they don't have anyone who can at all credibly teach that if they're still teaching it and
Sure.
teaching initial and final design. I had sent you a message earlier, seeing you commented on a quote about you have to and it was a quote from Mike about you have to have something that is unique and exciting and creative and compelling. And then you have to balance it. And you can't do
Yeah.
the other way around. But the
Mhm.
interesting thing I found for teaching, it's almost the opposite.
Oh,
For the
okay. Cool.
longest time, our program focused on, so now we can focus a little more on initial, but that's just because we've got this backing behind us. I mean, I've got Glenn. Did I mention Glenn was an editor for under Dell for 4 years?
I did
You
not.
want to
No.
talk about a crazy level of rules knowledge. And Andrew Veen, who you may or may not know. Again,
I don't think so.
Midgard.
Hmm.
He's worked for WotC and a bunch of other ones. He just released a new TCG. Anyway,
Very cool.
we can push initial design, but you have to teach balance and final design to make a game designer that's of caliber. It's, I think, more important in some ways, partially because everyone has an I don't want to say innate, but has learned from the rest of the world. an understanding of creative design,
Mhm.
but learning how to make the mechanics meet the message. And this is one of the cores to what we teach. And it goes in both directions. If your mechanics don't um, reach to the message and meet in the middle, and you have to, people talk, Rosewater talks a lot about top down and bottom up.
Mhm.
That's not the answer. The answer is this, back and forth until you get to the right middle point.
Yeah, it's very human. There's something you're saying here. So, like, Magic has been in live ops for 30 years, right? And it's a
Mhm,
different thing. Like, you can add new rules and change the rules, but by and large, like, you're dealing with a known apparatus. It's very different from designing a game from scratch.
mhm,
And the logic that you need there has to be more leap forward and giving yourself the opportunity to like take leaps in different directions. 0 to 1 is much different than 1 to 1,000 or 1 to 100.
mhm.
So a lot of what you're saying makes sense to me, having been on both sides.
You can also
I
design
Yeah,
a game that can't be balanced, and that's a real issue. Um,
yeah,
I've
that's
had to
usually
kill
not very fun.
projects. I've
Yeah,
had to kill projects. Usually, we kill them at Fire Opal if they can't be balanced, but that has happened. We
what do you think the best like modern games are like across the different mediums for your tastes, right?
For
Like,
my personal taste.
yeah, I think that's fair. Like, you're talking
So,
TCG, tabletop RPG, video game, whatever you
so
want. Like, what are
understand
you
that I
going?
love LARPs. I
I I
believe that
I get it.
LARPs are the absolute best game.
Mhm.
Um, and the and because I teach this stuff, I analyze it to death. And the reason is because the more senses you engage in a game, the better the game. It also comes into the more types of fun.
Mhm.
There's a couple of standard psychology literatures types of fun, and the more of them you engage, the better the game. And again, between the two of those, there is nothing like being, you know, at night in a LARP,
It's a
engaging in
community too, right?
combat. No, it is.
No,
The
I'm for sure it's the same.
your group of friends and, you know,
Meeting new
um,
people, playing
right.
roles.
Um, I am still good friends with all of my LARP party from when I was, guesting at Tap House, and they're, all some of my better friends. Including, by the way, I'm not the senior game design person from that group. That would be Rob Fermier or Zimu.
Okay. What
Um,
I not
he
familiar.
did System Shock,
Oh,
Thief,
yeah.
Age
Okay.
of Everything, Robot Entertainment, Fan Academy. He's got his own little studio now that's doing a couple of board games. Hopefully, I got everything major that Zimu did off the top of my head. He was the paladin in our party.
Okay. What were you?
Um, oh, so I was a kind of hybrid. I was the one of the Templar healers, but I hung out with the rogues and dabbled too much in necromancy was big no in the north. As a matter of fact, when I was interviewed at WotC, one of the people in Nero LARP is um, Nate, formerly Andrea,
Okay.
who you probably know them by.
Mhm.
Um, and, they asked me, so if you could change anything about a LARP, about Nero LARP, what would you do? Just from getting through my resume, as people do in interviews. And I said, well, when I had the chance to running Nero Southeast, oh, that was you, is how the discussion went. I had legalized necromancy and brought my court necromancer up after getting guarantees of not having him killed on site, which was the standard penalty if they were feeling generous. Yeah, death of character was legit penalty for being a necromancer back then.
That
which
is,
takes a more than just a simple sword to the gut.
and it would be very dangerous to bring that person back to life.
Oh, yeah, well, that's part of the issue. Um, anyway, so LARPs are the absolute favorite. If you're
Mhm.
talking digital games, I really like Once Upon a Galaxy.
Cool, I haven't played it, but, yeah, I did talk about it recently, and I am interested.
It is, a extension of Storybook Brawl, which was a favorite before FTX blew it up.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay, I need to go to a sidetrack before. Sorry.
No, go
Let
ahead.
me. So you got my background.
I
You
see
got
many
my
things.
stuff in my background.
Yeah, in the
So do you
mobile view oh, yeah, there
see
you go.
over the over there? Do you see Brawl TBG?
I think so.
That
Yeah.
long white box.
Yeah, yeah.
That is Storybook Brawl, the board game.
Wow, that's
Um,
cool. You
so
were
back
making that
when
for
back
the FTX version?
Matt
Yeah.
had contracted us to do that. No, this was back when the Million, um, it wasn't Million Dreams Games, what they're currently called. Good Luck Games was what he was originally. So
Cool.
Good Luck Games contracted Fire Opal because he trusted us to build a transliteration board game. And it was myself and Rob and a handful of my students from I be honest, I do have the chance to look at the best game designers we graduate and pull some in.
Mhm.
Um, one of the advantages is not I don't do anything while they're still in course because that would be a conflict of interest. But afterwards,
Yeah, why not?
I'm absolutely allowed to. Um, anyway, so we were doing that. FTX buys Matt's company.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's an
You didn't
unfortunate.
know that FTX bought the company? So this game that had 30,000 active players in its first couple of months.
Mhm,
And, Rob and I and a few other of our people knew it was amazing and been playing it previously.
mhm.
Um, we're okay. And Matt's is still going to be in charge. And the problem was, even though Matt was in complete control, SBF decided to say something on an interview about how he's going to use the Good Luck Games to help experiment in new ways of NFTs. Even though Storybook Brawl was going to have no NFTs, that didn't matter. It was free to play, which means anyone could review it on Steam. So this game with 100,000
Poor Matt.
players went to a 1 point something review because it's going to be NFT hell. And, that's like, no, it isn't. But there's no way we can shout that loudly, especially with SBF statement. Now, here's the other problem that happened the company went under.
Oh my god.
FTX
Yeah,
before
yeah.
paying our bill.
Come on.
I had invoiced it was a random chance.
Can
We
you
have
reskin it for Once Upon a Galaxy, though? That's the question.
no comment.
You don't have to answer, but I'm
So with
interested.
that said, I've been a party to the bankruptcy settlement of
Oof.
FTX, which is crazy bizarre. Anyway, I thought you'd want to hear that story because
I
it
mean, you're both, like, ahead of the curve in so I've talked to Matt Place already, but I can always reach out. I'm talking with someone who was at FTX on the buying acquisition side on Friday,
oh,
socially, not on
that's too bad. I want to hear that one.
Who doesn't? But now I have I got great intel from this. 1, it's great to talk to you. 2, I have a much better idea of how to frame the conversation with Mike Merles. And 3, conversation with person X, genderless, um, will be, about, some, storybook brawl. I could get some interesting information there.
So
That's a good story. That was not expected. That might be the game that we can't mention story. No, I'm just
So to
you
get
know,
to the answer to your question, this was kind of
continue.
a crazy long stretch to get there. Um, so, as part of my game design pedagogy work, we had a problem the first year that we were teaching was we could get across the concept of balancing. That was close enough to people. But the first step in balancing is costing. And that's because you have to have a frame of reference to work from.
Sure.
So here's Jay teaching this class for the first time, and my class is not learning what they need to because they don't get costing. I have this idea. What if I develop a game that's a minimum case costing problem?
It's a good idea. Yeah.
I, it worked out really well. The game was called Chess with Points. And this is the next thing I actually am probably releasing. So after 15
Cool.
years,
Very
it's
cool.
been used in class, and you can probably already guess what it is from the name. Um,
It's pretty. It sounds very battle tested, which is a good sign in any release. But go on.
so chess
Yeah,
pieces have traditional point values for use for
that's
evaluation
cool.
of positions. I
Mhm.
gave 10 additional pieces, and I say cost them such that the default chess set must be a viable strategy.
That's cool.
And these pieces, and you're going to play basically where you set up your army and your pieces where they are. And right now I have a class that is going right now, being taught by Glenn. They're using the first digital version. It has an AI in addition to the ability to play against other players.
Cool.
It's going to be sold in two versions. One is an academic version, which
That
will
makes
come with
sense.
curriculum. The other is I'm going to turn it on Steam in probably 6 months or 9 months. And it will, so other people can play it. I'll add in extra if it goes successfully, which I don't expect it to. This is
Mhm.
not going to sell huge. I mean, this is the goal is to cost pieces more than to win games. You win the game by at the end of the season, your costing is adopted. That's actually the victory condition.
I mean, it sounds fun to me, but I've done that job before. So,
Right. But
yeah.
that's how, which is, it's different, it's interesting, and it is definitely academic. And I'm going to be publishing a couple of papers because it did solve the problem. This is
I
how
think
we teach costing.
I think it's really cool. That product interests me. I mean, I think it's just as a dad, I'd be interested to try that. For my kids, they don't find chess that interesting because, like me, they're not competitive at heart. Um, but I think this kind of exercise would be more fun for them because it's problem solving that doesn't have this sense of, oh, I'm not good enough, right? It's hard to learn because you get punched in the face a lot.
Mhm.
Um, so it interests me as a dad, which comes up a lot, right? Like as parents or as like adults, like how do we think about what we're working on and how we're adding or subtracting to society? This one sounds like a good one. Certainly above average versus many of the things we talk about. So I'm excited.
So anyway, said that's that's what my next thing coming out is.
Hmm.
When not talking to you, I'm working on the design of the set that I haven't battle tested for 15 years, which is always interesting because designing. I have this one. If the game is successful enough, and it's not, I know it's not going to. I mean, it's an academic game at best. I would love to be able to put in a design your own piece and costing exercise. And there's no reason now with the technology as it is that we couldn't actually do that.
Hmm. Did you ever have a magic set that you wanted? Like I ask this question sometimes, which is like if you thought of like what is your ideal design for magic and what would be in it, you can borrow from any mechanics that are there, but like what's the Jay Schneider like signature experience if you built your own cube or whatnot?
I mean, honestly, Duels was that.
Okay.
Duels very much was each color with its core concepts, each multicolor with its multicolor concepts.
Hmm.
Um, you know, so the segmentation of the colors very strongly held.
Hmm.
And multicolor, of course, blending the two, but expressing their own personality from the blend of the two or the blend of the three or including the blend of the five.
Hmm.
And I was able to do that with Duels because remember, Duels was about reacquisition. So I wanted to bring up people's favorite feelings and memories. So blue white is, of course, a version of the deck. And, as much as I had to fight, there were touches of the Sly deck in the red.
Hmm.
I had to fight because it was Duels of the Planeswalker, and there was no Sly Planeswalker, annoyingly enough. At that point in time, had to use Chandra, especially since it was an intro experience, and Chandra hates goblins.
That's not very
And
nice.
and
That
I
is
was
not a good fit.
limited in, this was 10th edition era. I was trying to keep my cards recent and trying to build a deck of cards that are appropriate for duels because the Magic rules, even though you see them working, they don't actually work for digital. There's a handful of places you can just break it.
Mhm.
Lure is the example that I had in as the key example because lure basically based on the number of creatures, it scales at an unbelievably bad level
Sure.
because you have to remember it's not just you have to block not just legally but optimally. You have to do the most blocks possible, and the search time for that was awful. I put lure in, but not in the main game because of the CPU issues. I put it in a challenge where I could control the
Yeah,
number of
that makes
pieces.
sense.
So anyway, but yeah, no, duels would be my set where, you have any sort of format that keeps the lines clear. I don't like messes.
If you were the head of Magic today, what would you do differently from where they're at? Like, what would you be thinking strategically? You're a strategist. I know this now.
So this really depends on my goals.
Yeah, sure.
Um, I, I felt that the the increase in the number of sets and selling the IP, upstream was necessary because of the takeover attempt.
Mhm.
I feel like that, and I saw this when Finkel led the buyout attempt to take Hasbro.
I don't
Uh,
know this story, I don't think. So this interests me.
there was, oh, there was an attempt at one point in time by a member of Finkel works for a hedge fund.
Mhm.
And, I have no insider knowledge, I was watching it from the outside.
Yeah,
They made a attempt to take over Hasbro,
sure.
and it was based on Finkel basically saying that he could triple the profits exactly the way that they've done recently,
Mhm.
and that would pay for the takeover.
I don't want to say it, but it sounds like it's Finkel's fault. But I said it, but I
Uh,
don't know anything about the
so,
story.
I'm gonna
Hmm.
say that not Finkel's, don't hate the player, hate the game.
Yeah, I like that too. I have
Um
no
This
animosity
is
towards him.
this is a problem with late stage capitalism.
Yeah.
And um, and I only lightly know Finkel. I mean, I talked to him last time when it was duels, and I'm like, hey, hey, John, I'm making this unbelievable version of your card because
Yeah.
duels was 1080p and I was dealing compared to Magic Online. And I'd like you to take a look at it because mostly because I think you'll will be shocked and unbelieving at seeing your card art at this level. But so I don't really have any direct contacts. He played a version of a slide deck that I gave him once back in the day, and
Sure.
played it way better than I did, which was really embarrassing. Um,
He's pretty good.
he's pretty good. Um, anyway, the so he's doing, he basically attempted to raid, and Hasbro had to take efforts to prevent it. A
Okay.
couple of poison pills, but small ones. They could have fought harder, I believe. And I'm saying this as watching it as, just someone interested in markets and finance.
Mhm.
Um, and anyway, you know, and after that, I know that Hasbro management had to be afraid because he was
Yeah.
right. they could milk more money out of the magic cow.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like like someone was going to attack them somehow, so it might be doing them a favor versus the
It may
contrary,
have,
right?
because Finkel's hedge fund is small by the terms of hedge funds,
Yeah.
and Finkel wasn't a senior partner or anything. It was about as good of a wake-up call as could be gotten. So you can say that he did them a favor.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Um, I can easily read that story out of it as well.
Mhm.
But the fact is that right now, Magic has sold a lot of its it seems like it sold a lot of its future for short-term growth.
Yeah.
Um, when I was there, there was a fun project that we worked on, just sort of casually in some downtime, called Omega.
Mhm.
Uh, and I don't know if you ever saw Omega Set and Design Fun.
I don't know, I'm not sure.
You're familiar with Alpha, right?
Yeah.
The first set of Magic.
Yeah, of course.
You know what Omega is.
Yeah, okay, I get
Answer
that.
the question of what you would do if they're closing Wizards down. What do you print?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Nothing's off the charts because Magic is stopping after it.
Mhm.
And it seems like they raided the Omega file a little bit. Um,
That makes sense. That's
I don't think
pretty
they actually did, but it's very much sounds like the Omega
hmm.
design style. And,
So what do
you
they
know,
do in this position, right? It's a funny
so
position
now
to
what
be
do they
in.
do? Well, they don't
It
have their own IP anymore.
I know.
They demolished their own IP, and this was when, I saw what they were doing, adding in, the Lord of the Rings and D&D and D and whatnot. They totally demolished their old story. They don't have characters. Everything they have is borrowed, and they could try to recreate it, but as someone who's had to build an IP a couple of times,
Mhm,
it's hard and ugly, especially now. I mean, how do you build a story that's better than the ones you've already put out there?
mhm.
Um, and are you still under the same cost pressures as you
Market
were?
pressure, yeah.
I just I don't know. And that's why I can't really answer the question of what I would do if I was in charge of Magic. It depends on all of these factors.
Mhm,
And I mean, I would like to say that, well, I would just change Magic to be Lord of the Rings themed forever, but they're not creating more content. But maybe they let Hasbro create more content. Or maybe there's a merger between the Lord of the Rings Corporation or one of the other big ones. I mean, comics are a bad choice, but there's a couple of high fantasies you could go with. And instead of building your own IP, and then use that because you can get the creative talent and you have a lot of it already. Um,
why not do something more like D&D where, like, people can use the systems? Is that an option, you think?
sure, but it depends on what your goal is.
Mhm,
If you Crowds are weird in how they
mhm.
do things because if you do that, you'll get a lot of noise, enough so you may not get the gems. That's
Yeah,
why
for sure.
having, something that you hire the best you can using the best process and the best
Well,
filtering.
I mean, imagine it was worth it for Matt Place to be making Magic instead of making, Once Upon a Galaxy and even making that into a digital product. Is that better or worse than having the way it's set up today? Like, you would imagine there would be some strong fiefdoms that showed up to add value, like, in directions that matter. Could you even manage that centrally, and license it out intelligently? I don't know.
Maybe.
This is just, like, theorizing. I have no
I mean,
stake in the
Once
game.
Upon a Galaxy, I'd like to comment, but it basically uses public domain IPs.
Mhm.
I mean, the first set was Storybook. The
Makes a
second
lot of
set
sense.
is, he just launched his second set at the end of the year, and it has, basically candy themed creative.
Mhm.
Um, one of
That's
the
fun.
yeah, it's very fun. It's all
Okay.
about candy and candy creatures and whatnot.
Mhm.
Uh, so but he still but that's a good way to approach things, and I try to do similar to that when I'm doing designs just because It's that or trying to find somebody who will give you a crazy good deal. I did Armello, the board games, not too long ago.
Okay.
I
Yeah, I
don't
have
know.
not seen it.
Are you familiar with Armello, the digital board game?
I don't know it, but I'm interested. I actually have spent a lot of money doing this podcast series, and so if you cost me more money, that's fine. I'm just going to be. I'll cry and be happy at the same time. Continue.
So Armello, the digital board game, initially was the Great Australian Board Game,
Oh, cool.
and it was created about 9 years ago. The
Hmm.
Australian government got tired of New Zealand kicking their butts in game design and game companies, and so they set up a fund and paid this company. Uh, yeah, that's the Kickstarter for the board game that I did. Again, it was a transliteration project of the digital
Very
board.
cool. That's cool as
Armello.
anything. Hmm.
So I'm hoping you'll be able to physically buy it. We have shipped, I know you'll be able to in Australia, but
Hmm.
because of tariffs, um,
Oh yeah,
this game was very expensive.
it looks
And the
awesome.
tariffs came in. It is, I think, awesome. It is the hardest game I've ever had to develop. I was the lead developer for the board game version, but you should play
Hmm.
the digital one for you
Okay.
personally that it was made off of. Their story is there's this great board game that we're making a digital version of, but that's just sort of their creative theming. The problem is they made a game that you could not do as a board game directly because it is actually that game full of second order rules with bells and whistles and everything else. And they made this crazy thing and people liked it. And its strength was its number of second order rules. That was actually the first order rule is lots of second order rules, or at least a design pillar. So when I had to balance it, normally when you're balancing a game, you strip out the excess second order rules. You
Huh.
can't do that in this. And that was like tying both my hands behind my back and pushing me off a pier. Um, it was so hard. I think I got it. I think.
You like new challenges?
I do. And this is what I don't. So Fire Opal was set up because we are kind of a weird. I don't want to call us concierge game design company. We only do
Hmm.
projects that we want to do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We turned down the social games when that happened. We turned down the NFTs when that happened. We turned down the cyber game, crypto
Are there
games.
pillars that like this is what fire would say yes to? Like before you get to like the intuitive yes no, do I feel it? Like, do you have pillars that you look for or checklists that you look for?
Sure.
Hmm.
Morality is an issue.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That would
It's a
probably
big
be
one.
the number one. So one of the pillars that we have is don't do anything that will damage the reputation of our designers. Fire Opal, all of our senior people are high level WotC folks or
Sure.
similar.
I
Um,
worked with them.
yeah, you've worked. And the best brightest I can pull from my class who aren't doing something better, are the people who help me.
Hmm.
And who helped not just me, but Rob and other folks.
Sure.
Um, and not damaging the reputation of people like Rob or Jonathan or Lee or whoever.
Hmm.
Even myself somewhat is paramount. Um, we actually had an interesting issue and that we had to decide. So Rob, with some help from Fire Opal, did a game called Epic Spell Wars.
Okay.
There's a lot of companies who use us as ghost companies, usually through Rob. They
Hmm.
want a Rob Hainslow board game design, but don't want to hire Fire Opal to do it. So Rob and friends do it.
Okay.
And Epic Spell Wars was one of those. I don't know if you've played Epic Spell Wars.
Mm-mm.
Um, it's a pretty it may be the biggest board game we've done in a while. Will Wheaton liked it a lot and played it on his series, not paid, just because.
Oh,
Um, it it sold a couple 100,000. Um,
that's awesome.
and you
That's
know,
really good.
but here's the thing: if you look at the creative for it, I know you've got your machine there, and so if you look at the artwork, it is very Adult Swim.
Yeah.
We had a disagreement, and this was good faith disagreement on both sides, between us and Cryptozoic on, what was appropriate for some of the elements. And so we took our name off and stopped doing it. We made that public, which is why I can talk to you about it. If you search, there's actually a letter in Rob Painso's blog about why we have stopped working on Epic Spell Wars, and our name has been since pulled from it. For the record, we still continue to cash our royalty checks, but
That seems smart.
well, we did the work, and it was for the work that we felt was within appropriate. And again, these are personal decisions.
Yeah, for sure.
Our line was different than their line, and you can see how that happens with something like this. You know,
Yeah. How much do you game at this point? I'm a dad of 7 and 10-year-olds, so I go to a lot of soccer games. I'll pick up my daughter at 5:30 today. She's doing the musical, and she will play Snow White. And she's going to be a great Snow White.
I
I
have
will make
no
sure of
doubt.
that tonight. I will make sure that she practices tonight. But how much do you get to game? Like, I don't get to game that much. Last week when I played Magic, it was the first time in quite a while. So
In some ways, all I do is game. In some way,
you're like the exact opposite.
and do you consider? So this is a choice.
Oh, for sure.
I remember I just listed turning down all the big money games,
Hmm.
because I would rather get almost nothing for a game I love, or nothing, to be honest. Let's be direct. And I've got a lot of games that I'm proud of, but earned no money. Um,
Hmm.
there's, you know, I have a couple of Steam games that are really good and have under 1,000 people who bought it.
Yeah, it's really tough.
One of them is double A, and Foxconn cut cut our marketing 2 months before release,
Mm.
and it was designed. It was a there's a I can show you across my living room. You probably can't see it. Last Kids on Earth hit the deck.
Okay.
I don't know if your kids read Last Kids on Earth.
Mm-mm.
They
I don't
should.
think so. Okay.
There's also a Netflix series to add to your kids. Basically, what do kids do after the zombie apocalypse? And the answer is no school, play video games, and hang out. And basically, everyone in town except for four kids are turned into zombies, and or monsters, and so they hang out in their treehouse and raid the mini mart trying to avoid zombies using Nerf guns and similar.
That's cool.
Uh,
Like
and anyway,
Gremlins with the zombie is
well,
how I feel about that.
it's a top, yeah, Gremlin with zombies, but cartoon style, voiced by Mark Hamill, Rosario Dawson, Bruce Campbell. I mean, crazy set of voice actors. And
Very
there's a
cool.
book series that's great. And we did it didn't finish development because they cut the project. This was when Foxconn had the big issue with lockdown.
Okay.
And so they cut all their non-core projects,
Yeah.
and we were one of them. We went from being 2 months from release, and we've got this book tour scheduled with the author to promote the game, to you have 2 weeks of marketing, and you have to ship whatever you can get out the door. It's still pretty good. It's double A tier, but under 1,000 people.
Yeah, you make the games industry sound like the major leagues. Like, if you're like, "What tier of business is it?"
There are 3.
Yeah.
I mean,
Go on.
there's AAA games, which
Hmm.
you're familiar with.
Hmm.
There are AA games, and um, so our game was a little bit more intensive visually. I mean, it was a kids' game, of course, than Slay the Spire, but a one of the higher end deck builders could be AA.
Sure.
Single A is anything at all bigger than an indie. And then there's
The
some
Lego
indie stuff.
games were always single A to me.
Yeah, actually, Unpacking is a wonderful single A game,
Hmm.
as an example.
Okay.
So those are just pretty standard tiers as far as I know.
Hmm.
I've certainly heard the term repeatedly in reference.
Yeah, it's. I think it probably differs a little bit between houses and also between industries. If you're on the mobile side, you're thinking very differently than on the like console
Absolutely.
PC side, right? So every community has their own
Nomenclature.
rules and nomenclature for sure.
And terminology is actually a big issue in the game industry.
Yeah.
Um, one of so the in order to get my research legitimized, as it were, I'm working with the iSchool at the UW, and the
Oh, cool.
iSchool is the School of Information Informatics School. Um, I think some of the people you're going to interview's kids may have graduated, but I'm being vague intentionally.
Oh, I have a guess of who.
You have a
Yeah,
guess who might have.
yeah, I'm sure.
I had to check to see if they had taken any of the classes because we do run a program through them. One
Mhm.
of the game design program has a School of Information 400 level series
That's
where we teach design, UX in games, and UX and something else and related. Those are the two that I'm most interested. Anyway, nomenclature being the other one. One of my PhD students, and no, I don't officially have PhD students, but that doesn't matter. I'm the person who sits there and does the advisor stuff. Is coming by today, and he teaches a graduate level game nomenclature because the terminology is a terrible mess. One of the things that I'm actually looking at for my meeting with him this evening is what actually is an achievement. Tell me you've played Dream Quest.
Oh, I love Dream Quest. It's
Perfect.
actually I have played a lot of that. It's one of the games on my Hall of Fame deleted list. Like I loved it, I beat it, and I
When you say
deleted
you
it.
beat it, what do you mean beat it? Unlocked
I beat
everything?
I unlocked an awful lot of it. In Balatro, I unlocked everything. It is like a game I played pretty deeply into with a lot of the decks. And then like, I have to work and get
By the
married
way,
and
I
stuff.
offered to buy it from Peter as soon as I saw it.
It's really great.
He was a UW student at the time.
oh, I had no idea. Yeah, no, I mean,
PhD.
for me, it's like a perfect game. It's like not wasting any money on art and it's mechanically perfect. You're like, Blotter was the same. I'm like, I could spend a lifetime on this. Delete.
I disagree with that one. I
Oh,
thought
yeah.
Blatro made a few core mistakes.
Go on. I loved it. But again, I
Now, with
deleted it
that said,
7 times.
don't get me wrong that it was not a great game,
It's pretty
but
great. Yeah.
it made a lot of huge mistakes, and
Okay.
it wasn't innovative. Dream Quest
I love Dream
invented the
Quest.
wheel.
Yeah.
So one of the
Hmm.
terms that we have to deal with. So the iSchool is working with the Stone Museum and the Library of Congress
Hmm.
in order to build up archival systems for games. The problem in one of the earlier problems is you don't have a consistent nomenclature between industry, academia, or even inside of either of the two groups. And without a nomenclature, you can't organize this. And if you can't organize it, you can't build an archival system.
Sure.
And so, one of the terms, so let's talk. This happens in almost every type of game. Dream Quest versus Slay the Spire.
Sure.
What is Dream Quest?
The engine for building this kind of game?
No, well, no, but what type is it? It's not the is it's the first game, but it's not the most significant game in the genre. How do
Yeah,
you
that's true.
distinguish between the two?
I think one is polished and evolved. I
But
see
what
Dream Quest
term do
as
you use?
perfectly
That's
raw.
I'm asking for a term though.
Oh,
I want terms for each of these so that I can file them as part of a card catalog hierarchy.
I mean, and it's tricky. Like Dream Quest to me feels like a prototype that's just kind of perfect, and Slay the
I,
Spire is
I can
a
switch
polished
you
feat.
to
Yeah,
I can switch you to Dune 2 and StarCraft if you want to go with those style of games. You've played StarCraft, of course.
yeah.
Did you play Dune 2?
I didn't.
Dune
Um,
2 is StarCraft that came out from Westwood Studios about a year and change first. Has all the mechanics and they make way more sense. You know how the
sure,
creator for StarCraft,
it's cool.
the whole the whole crystals to do things. Change crystals to spice.
Mhm. Oh, sure.
Change your things that go out and harvest to harvesters. And now your three factions are Empire, Harkonian, and Atreides. The exact same gameplay. You're building your base out. You're using the resources with your spice. That came first by a considerable period. But it's not what anyone knows.
But it's the loser, right?
Sure.
Yeah,
But it
predecessor.
innovated the
Yeah.
whole field. And by the way, Dune 2, I'm sure it's on good old games, is kind of amazing also.
Mhm.
Not Dune 1. Dune 1 was a totally different type of game. Um,
Yeah, it's funny. Someone pitched us on at one of the companies I was at on doing a foundation game. It's an RTS, probably similar to
mhm.
what you're talking about. And it was like, I can't imagine this being something we would do as like a modern enterprise, especially given how hard it is to enter on mobile. Um, but I mean, it's interesting how long it took Dune to be a major franchise beyond the books, and it still hasn't fully like reached the level you would have expected it to.
Mhm.
Um, which is its own thing. It's odd, but is there something flawed about that IP that prevents it from reaching a higher height?
I don't believe so. Well, yes, there was something flawed with the Dune IP. It had to get resold again. The rights seemed to revert. I don't know what Westwood's license was back in, this had to be what,
Sure.
early 90s.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, is it Warner who has it now? But games are a weird
oh,
space.
games are
Yeah,
weird because they broke
yeah, they
games
have different
down a lot.
licenses.
I was involved in one of the companies that there's a term fractional management. I don't know if you're
Sure.
familiar with
Yeah,
it. I'm a fractional manager or advisor or whatever, what have you, on a bunch of companies. And one of them was considering getting a chunk of the license for Dune, which went through, at that point in time, hadn't been broken down by the board game purchaser and how they were going to do it. And it's
yeah. Hmm.
just a horrible mess. Um, but to loop back to why I brought up Dream Quest for a minute.
I do love
Um,
Dream Quest.
I love it. But here's the question I'm dealing with in an academic sense. Does it
Hmm.
have achievements?
Hmm.
So, you know those things that you complete to unlock progression
Yeah,
and to unlock cards? Are those achievements or are they just called achievements?
yeah, it's a fair question. I mean, are they quests? All these games use the
I believe they are quests
yeah.
because achievements have no progression, traditional definition, have no progression reward, only cosmetic or external. And usually they're external rewards. I mean,
Mhm.
an iconic example of an achievement reward is Xbox or Steam points.
Sure.
And yet, Dream Quest has an achievement system that is almost like a start of the game quest log.
Yeah, I certainly work on games where the spreadsheet for quests, the data you would enter is the same as for achievements. There's no difference. Um,
Oh, there is
Well,
the externalities of rewards is a big well, this is a big
sure.
difference when you're trying to define things, and,
One ends
um,
up feeling kind of hidden a lot of the time. You don't really think of it consciously, and the other thing is your kind of your core focus, right? Short term, long term.
I've been doing some work with a company, and they've run into some problems because of this. They were able to
Mhm.
resolve them, but, you know, it's interesting because knowing these things at this detailed level really does make a difference.
Yeah, it's funny. You're a different side of the coin. When I talk to Mike Elliott, I'm like, I know you had to deal with collation and foil treatments and all the bizarre papers and paper stocks that we had to use for all of our games. And you're kind of the deep, like, sort of first principles. You're deep into first principles of how
Mike is
these
amazing.
things are codified. Yeah, yeah, it's funny.
No, he
Everyone
is.
has their. He is pretty cool.
He worked with me on a game that won Board Game of the Year, Shadowrun Crossfire,
That's cool.
which has now led to unbelievable number of successive products. Um,
He's had a good
so
run.
can you see that shelf over
Yeah.
there? Okay.
The viewer can't, but I can.
Okay.
Wow.
Anyway, it's got Shadowrun Crossfire Second Edition, the three expansions, one of which there are only 250 copies made as a promo,
Oh,
eBayable for about $250. It was the Vegas expansion for 1 year of Gamma trade show,
very
and
cool.
we gave them to high end, larger retailers, and it's got Troll Elvis in there. Um, Anyway, and Dragonfire was the next, which had 14 expansions, D&D Dragonfire.
Sure.
And we've got Runefire coming out. This is work with Catalyst. And Runefire comes out. It's going to Kickstarter in the next month, I believe.
Oh, this is pretty cool. It's funny, like, I haven't talked to you in a while, so
It's
it's like
been since you were in town.
you have absorbed many new, like, accomplishments in that time. I feel like I'm in the matrix of games. The games section, I could pull out the fireable rack and be very happy.
Well, I would hope so, but I suspect I'll wind up. I tend to pivot after road trips, and this was one of the things when you had me think about things in my life.
Mhm,
Road trips happen before I pivot. Pivoting into research academia came after. It wasn't a traditional road trip. I took a sabbatical.
mhm,
I spent 3 months in Hawaii, um, living in at the outskirts of Hawaii on the beach. And I basically took a sabbatical, no vehicle, to force myself. I was about a mile and a half from town, so I had to bike into town, but I was on a canal, so I could also kayak to the beach. It was about a
mhm,
mile and change, and so every day I biked and kayaked so I get food and go to the beach, and I disconnected from my phone. I plugged it in and just left it as a permanent feature in the place that I never was, where I slept,
mhm,
and spent about 3 months. It was nice to be able to think again. I found that, I had lost the ability to think big and long, and I had to cut off from effectively. It wasn't I didn't play games when I came back,
mhm,
but I would go out and, bike to a plantation and sit there on the plantation on a bench for 2 to 3 hours, or kayak to a nature preserve and just, watch the sea turtles do whatever sea turtles do. They seem to just sort of float around and Um, but I could just sit there and think for hours, and regaining that ability was important.
When's your next tour of duty from that perspective?
I don't know. I don't really time them. Leaving Watsu was one. You know, took one there. I took a road trip where, because I didn't know if I wanted to go back to grad school. I didn't finish my PhD.
Mhm,
I was working. I'm ABD, all but dissertation. Um, my advisor had gotten a Fulbright. I was working in wearable computing at the time.
Mhm.
Soldier of the Future, aka Land Warrior 2000 back then. And my advisor went off and I'd gotten permission to move up to Seattle because my wife had a job here and I was going to work at the UW's Hit Lab.
Mhm.
And then they changed their mind. And I told them, no, I'm not going to uproot myself, my life, and everything else to finish a PhD, which I was doing with a stapler. I had published about 15 papers at that point in time. So my
Mhm.
thesis really was just compiling them together. Um, and so I didn't. And so I didn't finish my PhD. But my advisor, by the time I had finished with WotC, this is some 10 years later, he still offered me a position with him at UMBC.
Oh, I have been there. I played against Mike Postelnick at UMBC like 31 years ago, and he was really good then, if you know Mikey P.
I only know him by reputation. I
Yeah, he
don't,
won a pro tour, right?
I,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, we used to play in tournaments at UMBC all the time, but continue.
Yeah, it was, but I took a road trip along the US. I, went to a bunch of water park towns. There's a few of them along the way.
Mhm.
Indoor water park towns up in Wisconsin, the Dells, and then there's the one up in Ohio, right on the Great Lakes, as you go into Michigan. I'm forgetting the name of the town, but they're amazing places. And I visited everyone who, I knew along the way, and I came down to Atlanta and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
It took me a couple months and it was nice. Um,
Yeah,
Next up, I don't know. Uh, right now I'm doing this. It might wind up happening. So political things I disagree with heavily, to
sure.
put it mildly.
Yeah,
Um,
it's, yeah.
I had made a decision to just use moral codes and not worry about morality until I was 50.
Okay.
This was a conscious decision. I'm okay with using the standard moral codes and not trying to fight my way through them. So for the last 8 years, I have been trying to somewhat.
Okay.
I'm sure I made this decision to change that at during one of my road trips, um, and I don't know if it is moral for me to be working in the U.S. at all. Um,
It's interesting.
well, it's not that I'm not rich. I don't
Mhm.
generate a lot of money. It's not that I'm poor either. I mean, I could retire if I wanted to, but I'm not going to be retiring to a West Coast state unless I'm inland.
Sure.
I'm
Yeah,
careful
sure.
where I pick.
Sure.
Um, so I'm, but with that said, I have an outsized impact on on money in society. I'm on the, board or a senior manager in a lot of companies. Um, I You know, I mean, what would you do if you were a German citizen in 1933? And I kind of feel like that's what we're running right now. Would
Sure.
you stay in Germany or would you try and move to somewhere else?
Yeah, I don't think I'll be going anywhere, but in the German example, my family was already gone, and, for good
But
reason.
you
Yeah.
understand that it's a moral decision. I don't
For
know that
sure.
I want to contribute to the US GDP because I think that might be immoral. I'm not sure. And I don't expect anyone else to follow my morality at
Mhm.
all. But
Mhm.
it may be immoral for me.
Yeah, I can understand this. It's you kind of have to have faith that, like, there will be a recalibration to something that feels a bit more checked. But,
Sure. But in the meantime, I mean, my wife works for a federal agency, and there's questions, is that moral? She has nothing to do with the bad ones.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah, you're not the first person I've known to be having these thoughts or even acting on them.
right. I mean, and I certainly talked to Nate a lot about these. I
Yeah.
mean, he has an immediate issue that he had to resolve,
Yep.
regarding, but in my case, it is just simply, if I was a German in 33, do I want to be working in Germany?
Yeah. Do I
And
want to
or is
support
it
you? What
immoral
is
to,
this about?
especially, since I can see where it is. I mean, I'm not, I don't have kids.
Hmm.
Um, I am not really concerned on significant, well, I don't have you have more expenses than I do by a lot.
Hmm.
I
Sure.
live the same life that I did when I was a graduate student with my wife.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a slightly nicer location of an apartment. Um, after I'm done chatting with you, I can go out and take a walk on the water, which I'm a couple of blocks from. But I'm in a 900 square foot apartment like I've always lived in.
Hmm.
And, I like it. I don't have kids. I never had time to see done a lot of things.
For sure.
So I guess my work and my TAs and my grad students are as close as I get.
Yeah. I mean, you always have a community around you. Uh, I think it seems core to your being, like, regardless of how you get to it.
Mhm. And I think I can set one up. I mean, what would really get me to move is if I can find a university or even college with high aspirations,
Mhm.
probably somewhere in Canada, in an English speaking area, where they will let me be an adjunct. Just because I need a location to publish from, and I need some students to build a community around. It's hard to write about game design pedagogy when you don't have
Yeah.
test participants, and that
Yeah.
means a university because I am
Yeah.
about it.
There's some big cities there to do that, I think.
There are.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
don't know how long you want to talk, but this is sort
Oh.
of, I'm happy to talk as long as you are,
Oh,
and
I have to go pick up my daughter actually from her play practice. However, I will say, given we had a lot of trouble setting up today, but I feel like we've gotten very far in a 2-hour period.
I think so too. Uh,
Like, this was a very nutritional conversation, and it may be Cole Medeiros' like, he got over $100 of spend from me on games for my kids, and you may surpass that. We'll see.
oh, was this a goal? Games for
No,
your
it should
kids.
not be a
Oh,
goal.
wait,
Yeah. No,
now
no,
you have
I
to
like
hold on for one
we'll
second.
we'll
Games for
close on
your
this topic, but I like that
okay,
topic, yeah.
alright. You need to Last Kids on Earth books, whatever platform they read them in.
Mhm.
Afterwards, get them the deck builder if you want to get them a deck builder.
Sure,
Um,
they can handle that.
so your kids you said are 7 what grades are they in?
7 and 10, 2nd and 4th.
So, Monsters versus Fractions. So, I have
Okay.
one major academic title that I was the designer for. This is you'll find it online. Monsters versus Fractions won a gold medal in the serious play competition. It was also done in conjunction with Smart Technology that got bought by Foxconn. And Monsters versus Fractions is sorry for the story, but you get one for this. I was reached out to by a friend who worked in UX at Smart Technology, and he
Mhm.
said, I need to make a great educational game." And I said, "It's impossible. Sorry, click." 3 days later, I had a thought, and the reason that I said it was impossible is not just because basically every education game has failed. It's because inherently there is a flaw in the concept. When you look at the very first principles, psychological underpinnings of play, play has to be free and of its own volition. There can't be monsters versus fractions is significantly diminished because it's not called monsters versus robots. I lost that fight. The only reason it isn't is because most educators wouldn't purchase it
Oh,
as monsters versus robots. But what I realized was I started thinking about this and doing a little bit of research, and I realized there's a very weird branch of pedagogy. And it's called implicit instruction or education. And
uh-huh.
that's a little bit of an old school version. It's basically the Karate Kid style education. Wax on, wax off as a method of teaching karate. It's also the same way you learn to speak a language. You don't do a math blaster or dragon math or dragon learn to speak basic English. It's picked up through implicitly.
Mhm.
And what I had realized when I called them back 3 days later, and hopefully thankfully they didn't get rid of me or as a concept, was I think we can use implicit education by breaking down because this had to follow Common Core. This, by the way, teaches strict Common Core fractions
Okay.
designed for third to fifth grade students.
Mhm.
And we had an educational coordinator, an expert in Common Core and math who was working with us along with the team. And the key here is, can you design a game? Well, and by the way, my design pillar was we're not designing games, we're ripping off games that students want to play
Okay.
that teach the same thing. So the very first thing you teach in fractions is that a half is a half is a half, no matter what the shape is and no matter what the size is.
Sure.
Now, I want them to play this as much as possible, and I want them to be able to match fractions. Now, the key to doing this is understanding the verb match. What game do do third to fifth graders play that involves that the keyword is match? And the answer is
Yeah.
match three.
Sure.
We built a clone of Bejeweled, except it uses, instead of gems, different shape fractions. This is an example. It's an
That's
entire
pretty fun.
exploratory world that
Mhm.
hits every single learning objective. There's a few gamification things in there, such as the parent has a role and they can receive updates when completions are done if the student chooses to send it to them. They can also get, in return for sending it, allowance in the game.
Makes
Um,
sense.
but the parent controls that, different user. Um, anyway, and it's an entire world that goes all the way up through addition. We start teaching the basics of addition using, those factory games where you put together machine pieces.
Yeah.
We use that. We have a combiner and we were building robots. And you build the robots using
Right.
fractonium. The robots are built of fractional shapes, and this is how we teach fractional addition
That
by
sounds
building
fun.
conveyor. It's very fun. And anyway, it won a couple of gold medals for that and gives me lots to lecture on and some credibility in educational pedagogy.
Well,
Anyway,
plenty
but
of
that's
you've
the other game you need for your daughters or your kids.
I've written it down. I will tell you I'll send you the bill.
I can tell you how our user test did when we did the user test a
Oh,
few years
yeah.
back.
How does it?
So when you claim you're using implicit education, there's a test. The people have to not think they know how to do the subject. Remember how Daniel-san didn't know that he could do karate.
Mhm.
That's actually a test for implicit education. So we had a group of 26, it's been a few years, 20 something third grade girls who went through playing this game as much as they wanted to. And then we're like, we're going to have you take the Common Core final exam as our test. And they're like, but we don't know how to do fractions. 97% pass. It
Nice.
was all but
Inception.
one,
That sounds
but
pretty
they
amazing.
were never nowhere in here does it tell you how to do fractions. Hopefully, they haven't retrofitted that to something bad because it's been out of my control for a few years. But
Yeah,
anyway,
there's another topic I want to talk to you about, but we are, at least in terms of this call, out of time now. So I will follow up with you offline.
whenever. I enjoy chit-chatting with you. I mean, really.
Yeah, it's always nice to see you, Jay Schneider.
It is great to see you. Are you coming up here sometime?
I don't know. It's possible though.
When you do,
It could happen.
let's get a meal together somewhere.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks,
All
Brian.
right. Take
Talk
it
to you
easy.
soon. Bye-bye.
Namaste.